Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to another speed build for the Disney save. Today we're going to be working on a Tangled build for Henford on Bagley. We're going to be creating a cottage today that some of you might be familiar with, and that is Mother Gothel's Cottage. Now this cottage is shown in the Tangled TV show that I'm not super familiar with. I'm just going to get that out of the way right off the bat here. I have not seen this show. I have not watched pretty much any of it, but I was scrolling through looking for references for Rapunzel's tower, and I was trying to find some references of Mother Gothel's bedroom, and Disney Wiki let me know that there is actually an entire cottage called Gothel Cottage. So I did a little bit of research, obviously, because that piqued my interest. We were looking for a rental to add to Henford on Bagley down in this little strip in like the main village area across from where I have moved Gaston's Tavern. I basically wanted to keep this area down here very commercial, but basically I also really like the idea of adding a rental to every single world. So that way, if you play with your sim self, but you don't want to interrupt the storylines of the other worlds or the characters, or you just want to have a character go to another world and stay for an extended reason, but like not move them into a household, I can see why a rental would be a really good option. So theoretically speaking, as long as the world is not too small, I always want to try to plan to add a rental to each world. And fun fact, the first version of Henford on Bagley didn't include a rental, but we brainstormed a little bit and changed some ideas around, and the idea to put a rental down in this little strip that I've been very insistent with my patrons we keep commercial because of the fact that basically the rest of Henford on Bagley is going to be residential, and I do like to have like a decent mix in every single world. We were tossing ideas around like, what do we do? What do we use as a rental? Rentals are always really tough to come up with because you can't steal a house from a character that you want to live there, because characters can't live in the rentals. So some people were like, well, we could do the Three Fairies cottage from Sleeping Beauty, but then the Three Fairies don't have a home. So it's that kind of an idea, and you have to come up with something where it makes sense to be in the world. It makes sense that it would be a rental maybe, but you don't have to worry about whatever character had previously owned that home actually living there. So in the past, we've done things with Walt and Lily and Disney, apartments and things like that that they have built from the Disney parks. Those have all worked out really well. But then I stumbled across this, and it is Gothel Cottage. Now, I'm going to go ahead into a little bit of, I guess, spoiler territory for the TV show, so if that bothers you, this is your cue to check out of the video. And like I said, I'm not a super fan of the show. My patrons have been very, very heavily recommending that I watch it, and in my last video, you guys were so kind to show me a Reddit post that has like a list of all of the episodes that are super important for the show to watch rather than trying to watch all 3 seasons, because if I'm honest, I probably don't have time for all 3 seasons right now. But I watched the episodes that this cottage was featured in, and they're super spoilery. They're probably the episodes I wasn't supposed to watch first, but I'll say it did get me a little bit interested in the show. It's actually really high quality and super, super cute. Definitely not what I thought it was going to be, so I'm definitely interested now. Essentially, Mother Gothel lived in this cottage before her time with Rapunzel, and Mother Gothel's daughter also lived in this cottage. So it's very small. It's actually a 1-bedroom, and it appears that Mother Gothel and her daughter share the same bedroom. There's some flashback scenes of her daughter in the cottage, which were really, really great for interior reference. Luckily, this is on Disney Plus, so I was able to kind of watch the episode and steal a ton of screenshots from the show. So if you're a super fan of the show, you're going to recognize the interior of this cottage. I literally went through and just stole tons of screenshots and placed like every flower, every vase that I could see exactly where it was supposed to go, and really, really tried to stay true to the show, so hopefully some of you will really enjoy it if you have seen the cartoon. There was also a second episode that the cottage appeared in later in the season that's abandoned, so it was originally like a flashback scene, so the cottage is in really, really nice condition. It's lived in, it's where they both are staying at the time, because again, it's a flashback scene. And then later on, there is an episode where 2 little boys kind of like discover it, and Rapunzel ends up going there and all of that, so I watched both of those episodes, or at least the scenes that take place in the cottage, so I could kind of get the whole layout and the whole vibe of the entire thing. I also read the Disney Wiki page, which did note that it has a resemblance to Snow White's cottage, and it most definitely does in the thatch roof and even like the style of the building and the way that it's shaped. Very similar, but I tried to make some changes so that it's not too similar down the line, because of course we're going to be adding Snow White's cottage eventually to the Disney save, so we don't want them to be too similar looking. In the show, the cottage is definitely up, tucked away, kind of near some mountains and a waterfall with a water wheel attached. And the water wheel was actually really interesting because it kind of came off of the side of the home and over a piece of the waterfall. So instead of it sticking into a pond, it was almost attached to the bottom of the waterfall, and then that was sort of how it was rotating. But it definitely just needed a lot more space. That would have required a ton of terrain and a huge lot. And this is not the most important build, I will say. It's not the most recognizable. It's something that is a little bit more obscure in the Disney universe. So from my perspective, it's probably just a lot easier to keep it here and at least like have it in the save file and have it be something that is sort of recognizable, but isn't, we're not going to worry about like saving one of those really, really big lots so that I can get all the proper terrain and everything correct. As long as, generally speaking, it looks like her cottage and we have a lot of the similar features, I was going to be happy. And I also like the idea that obviously Mother Gothel doesn't live here anymore, so time has passed, and whether she is renting it out to make some money on the side for her and Rapunzel, and wouldn't it be great if you could actually own rentals so that that could be like an actual income that I could give to that household? That would be amazing, but you can't. So just, I guess, for like headcanon of the Disney save, it is either that she abandoned it and then like the town and the village sort of use it as a rental now, or a little bit of like a hotel space, or Mother Gothel is renting it out and using it as some sort of income. And so she keeps it in like somewhat decent condition, but what I thought would be kind of fun to play on the idea that it is kind of abandoned in at least part of the show and spooky, and it is Mother Gothel's, so she's a Disney villain, and we have like this beautiful cottage that doesn't look like it should apply to a Disney villain. We would give it some lot traits that are like kind of challenging and not super fun, and make it look like aesthetically very normal and very pretty on the outside, but then maybe it's a little bit of like a horror to stay here. So I think I gave it 2 lot challenges, one of them being haunted. So that makes spirits sort of appear. That is a new lot challenge rather than a lot trait. And creepy crawlies is also a lot challenge. Now, as far as lot traits, one of the ones that I decided to apply was Vampire Nexus, which is one that we don't get a lot of opportunities to use, but Mother Gothel is a vampire in the save file, and if you missed her Create-A-Sim, definitely check that out. That was my previous video from last week, so that will be linked in the Disney Save playlist in the description box down below, of course. And then I think I did Private Dwelling, possibly, or Peace and Quiet, or something like that. Something to keep other Sims kind of away, but it is a rental, so at the same time, they're not going to just like casually kind of come up here regardless. That way on the outside, it has this like sort of seemingly kind, just normal, everyday looking cottage, but this is more of like a traditional cottage, one that I haven't had an opportunity to build in our beautiful cottage world here. I've done towers and we have done Belle's cottage, but it had a very specific style for like French and her movie and everything like that. So this is the first time I was able to really use some of the cottage living with the thatch roofing and those thatch roofing pieces that go over the top that I am fully aware I have placed incorrectly in the beginning of this video. And there's actually like an end piece that goes on the front of the roof, and I figured it out at the end, don't worry. I just didn't know how to use them, and I didn't really understand how they place together. They're still tricky to place. They don't place exactly the way that you would think that they're supposed to, but I figured it out, so don't worry about that. And just give something that like kind of matches the area a little bit, but then have it be really spooky and seemingly I don't know, maybe something different as far as rentals go. A lot of my rentals are kind of high end, because I think what we have so far, we have 2 Disneyland rentals, and both of them were designed by Lillian and Walt Disney, so they have very old looking furniture, a lot of base game stuff, a lot of like high-end pieces and artwork and sculptures and like really nice polished living rooms and things like that, which is great for a rental, but we want to be able to provide a couple of different experiences as far as that goes in the save file. And then in Mount Komorebi, I also have the Arendelle Village rental, which is more like villagey vibes, but it takes place in Arendelle, so it has like a lot of the similar furniture and things from a lot of the builds that I did with Frozen. And now we have more of your like traditional cottage or cabin, and I think it would be really fun to take a couple of characters here. It is a one bedroom, like I said, because the two characters that lived here only shared the one bedroom, and honestly the space didn't provide enough for me to really do too much of anything else, so keep that in mind. We will probably add some rentals later down the line that are much bigger, but for now it does seem like a lot of the rentals that I have added have definitely been smaller, so hopefully we will look forward to some bigger ones down the line. Now, like I mentioned, for the interior, we had so much great reference from the show and the flashback scene and everything. The characters, like what I love more than anything when it comes to the newer Disney movies is when a character really like has a song in a space and they kind of do like panning all over the room and they zoom to literally almost like a 360 of the room and like really lay out those background details for me. It makes my life so much easier. I don't have to come up with color schemes or wallpapers or flooring. I know exactly what they want and where furniture is supposed to go. And even though it wouldn't always be my first choice as far as like decorating and like would I put that exact type of vase here, like not really, and some rugs and things like that get a little bit funky in, especially like even in the space where it's kind of small, so there's like clutter and bits around that I might not have chosen if I didn't have so many references to go off of. But at the end of the day, it makes building a lot easier, and I'm able to just kind of like go from room to room and replicate exactly what I'm seeing with what we have in game. So Mother Gothel's bed is a beautiful red canopy bed. We recently got a cottage living bed that comes in red with this beautiful like black wire around the bed framing, which is perfect. It's exactly what they showed in the movie, but then it was a canopy style bed. So I tried to take some curtains and kind of make something up. I don't hate it. I definitely think that I would love a couple more canopy beds that aren't the ones from Realm of Magic and something that isn't super modern, because we do have one or two from like City Living Pack and stuff like that, but I think that this works for now. And then she had her daughter's bed in the room, and her bed is very unique. It is circular, which is something that we so desperately need in The Sims. Not only circular beds, but like a perfectly round bathtub would be so great. And I couldn't pass up the opportunity because to me, when I looked at it, it immediately reminded me of the Cats and Dogs Ottoman. So I thought maybe we could just size it up. She is a child, so it doesn't need to be like the biggest bed, but you know, could we just get maybe like one round bed? It would be super great. It'd probably be too big for this space, honestly, so I wouldn't be able to update it. And then another thing that the child had around her bed was like a perfectly round canopy to go with it, which again, we just don't have. So I kind of pieced some curtains together. I don't love it. I don't hate it. Something hopefully I can come back and update someday, but for now, it is what it is. And then other than that, I think the key features to the cottage were kind of playing with a bit of color in here, surprisingly. It's not as like dark and dreary as you would imagine a cottage by Mother Gothel to be. From the show, it appears that, like, she really comes and goes the same way that she does from the tower, that she'll kind of, like, maybe come to stay for a night or two and then she takes off for a week. And so the daughter really lives here by herself and kind of keeps the place really tidy, and it's colorful, and I think that, like, embodies her character a little bit more. So it's not unsurprising that it has a little bit of color and a little bit of style to it, because it's more centered around maybe the daughter living there more so than the mother. And Mother Gothel, obviously, with her red bed and everything, like, she has her own theme that she routinely does. They even depicted that in the tower, so some of the spaces still really embody her character, but it's not traditionally what like a Disney villain's space would be, where it's like dark, creepy castles, lots of vampire stuff all over the place. This is a really big mix of like some nicer, colorful cottage living pieces, base game, cats and dogs. And I think, generally speaking, if you're not like a fan of the show, you're probably not going to recognize this space at all. Like, it doesn't look themed in any particular way. There's almost no references to anything Tangle related on the inside, other than a couple of small things from the show specifically. So again, you really got to be familiar with the show. And then there was definitely some playing on like different platform levels and height levels. And you could see from a lot of the shots in the show that when you kind of walk into the cottage, it has a dip down and some stairs down into the general living area. And then there was a windowsill with a little bit of a platform near that. And then the bedrooms are definitely platformed up a little bit higher. So like I said, you get some scenes where the characters are sort of walking perfectly through the cottage, which is great. It means I get to basically perfectly replicate it within the parameters of like an exterior almost never matching an interior, and having to add a couple of things that they didn't show, being the kitchen and the bathroom, because obviously we have to have both of those for this to be a functional space. But generally speaking, platforming came in handy for this build, very much so. We've got a couple of different sets of stairs going here and there. I definitely added a few more windows than what's being shown in the TV show. I always do that. I feel like you just have to add a few more windows to a space to really brighten it up, and I hate how closed and weird builds look in The Sims if you don't put enough windows. I had a couple more back by that fireplace, but I ended up taking them out because it didn't match the screenshots very well. So I did tone it back a little bit, but I always like to add a couple of extra windows. And then, yeah, like I said, we have, when you first walk in the entryway there, the kitchen and the very, very tiny bathroom that does not include a sink. And I did that on purpose. The sink to the kitchen is literally right there. Your Sims will be fine. They can walk down the stairs and wash their hands over there. And both of those spaces are not shown, but we obviously need to include them. So I kept them kind of simple. And with a lot of my rentals, I try to add clutter and a little bit here and there, especially for this one in particular, because we know two characters that lived here and we know like what type of characters they were. And I was able to see a lot of like clutter in the background, so I really knew what I was supposed to be placing. But generally speaking, when it comes to rentals, I try to keep them very neutral and make them feel almost like hotel-y, where they have some little bits of clutter here and there, but they don't try to make it feel like it's somebody else's space. This one, a little bit of an exception. There's definitely some personal items laying around, but still generally toned back compared to what I would normally do for, say, like your typical residential. Now, if you're watching this video when it first comes out, I am currently in Disney World. It is my first time there ever, and I'm very excited. So this is a pre-recorded video, and basically the next couple of videos that are coming out are going to be pre-recorded. Like I said, this is the last Tangled video for now. We will be doing more in future worlds. I definitely have a ton of more Tangle related things that we would like to do. In fact, if you are a part of my Discord, I have been pre-releasing my YouTube schedules ahead of time, like 2 weeks in advance, to let you guys know what's coming out. And I had posted that I was going to be putting a Tangled Art Center speed build up on this day, and we made some changes to Henford on Bagley. I'm going to be doing the Tangled Art Center. I even have the building that it's going in picked out, and I think it's a really, really brilliant idea, but it's just not going to go in this world. And there's a couple of different reasons for that that'll make a lot more sense when we get to some stuff later on in this world. But for all of you Tangled fans out there, I just want to preface, we will be doing Flynn Rider, we will be doing Corona Castle, we will be creating some other characters, maybe even from the show as well, and some townies and things like that. So there's more Tangled to come. I will be moving on to a new movie, I think, for Henford on Bagley. We have 2 more movies that we're going to be including in this world. So far we have Beauty and the Beast and Tangled, and so we have 2 more. You can leave your guesses as to what those are in the comment section down below. If you're a patron of mine, don't spoil it, because you guys already know. Let other people guess. And I hope for now you have enjoyed the Tangle content. Let me know what you thought of Gothel Cottage in the comment section down below. If you would like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link in my description box down below, or the one at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Hit that little bell icon below to turn on post notifications so you can get updated every single time I post, and I will talk to you all in the next one.